Yes, welcome. Today is market outlook. We are majorly going to focus on the dollar pairs. Want to see their long-term perspectives, and then possibly for trading opportunities that we can be able to take on the long term. So the best way to usually understand the dollar pairs is to look at the dollar index, which is the DXY. So we're going to have a breakdown on the DXY, and then once we understand the perspective of the DXY on the long term, then we can be able to relate with the other dollar pairs. So let's get into it. Yeah, so from a swing perspective, we always want to go to the highest time frame possible. In that case, which will be the 12-month time frame, which is our yearly time frame. So when you look at the yearly time frame, you realize the DXY is bullish, and then we had this long wick to the upside. So that will tell us this is our highest possible price, which is around 114.713. That is our highest price. But looking at this candle, you realize is also a bullish candle. So that means there's a possibility of this wick being filled. But of course, we shall need to understand it when we go to other lower time frames. And then if you look at it, this is an area the market has not been able to break. So this area, of course, we had this strong candle break to the outside. And then now this is an area the market is not being able to break. Yeah, so once we have this, we don't have much information, maybe apart from this also, this area of price difference where the difference was created. So this is all we have on the highest time frame possible. So for us to be able to understand now where we are trading, which is specifically, we're trading around this with the possibility of this week being filled. So we can go to our monthly time frame, and we also want to see how the market has been moving on the monthly perspective. So on the monthly perspective, this was the week that we saw, which would be filled depending on the market condition. And then this was the area the market was able to, which was acting as our support because of the difference that was created around here. So now this is an area of support on the monthly chart, and then market has been rallying to the upside to create a new high, which was higher than all of this. And then we had a drop back into this area, and now the market has been consolidating around this region. So we want to mark, this is the area where the market is kind of trapped in now. And then we also had another price difference area around this. So price is ranging around here, but we know from the long-term perspective, this is a week that is likely to be filled. So looking at also this is another area where we will want to see the market first reacting from. So once we have this laid out on the monthly chart, of course, we will look at the fundamentals and all of that coupled in. So once we have this, you realize that now the market is heading maybe towards this area, which will act as our resistance. Yeah, depending now, if this area is broken, then we can come to retest this area and possibly look for selling opportunities here. And then maybe also here on the short term, but the long term perspective, there's a tendency of the market coming up here. So once we have that, looking how the last month has closed, very bullish, and the market is headed up. So we can now look at our weekly, which we can apply. So on the weekly perspective, yes, you can see there's a lot of bullishness in the market, and the market is actually heading upwards. So this will be our weekly, our resistance area, whatever you want to call it, but this is an area where the market is likely to react. Yeah. So once we have this, we want to see the previous weekly lows, which was here. This was also an area where the market will not come further down here. So we see now we are trading around this region to heading towards this, but there was a level here which the market is seeming to be breaking now, which is this level here. So on the weekly, it has not yet close. We still have about 2 days to the weekly close. So, but the market is already pushing up here. There must have been a close on the daily. So when you look at this on the daily, the market is headed upward, has taken over the previous highs. And now we know there is a possibility of the market trending to this side here. Now, depending on your strategy and how you trade, you realize you can begin to look for the dollar strength continuing as we see the DXY heading to this level here. So once we have a clear understanding of where the DXY is headed to, we can actually now go into the other dollar pairs. Specifically, let's just go into, so we are bullish. Depending on how you enter and how you trade, you can begin to look for selling opportunities on this area. Yeah. Now, with that being said, we can now go to another dollar pair, which is, we can look at the Euro USD. Which is almost similar to the DXY in the way they move. So again, I'm just going to be fast, and then we break this a little bit faster because we already know the long-term perspective. So if you look at the long-term perspective, there's a possibility of also this week being filled, and we had this area where the market has been headed down. When we come to our monthly time frame, you look at this, a lot of bearishness in this. Of course, will the market come here? It will take a lot for it to come here, but it gives us the perfect understanding of where we are trading from. So we are trading around this region, and then possibly we could be headed towards these areas. These are areas where we will be looking, and then these previous monthly lows and stuff like that. So there is no more information here. So we want to understand price action on a lower time frame. We have to dive in a little bit lower. So on the weekly perspective, you realize this was also, these are areas, and this is where we had our resistance area, whatever you want to call it, based on the price difference that was created. So we have these lows. So there's a possibility of the market coming to come low as here. So for us, depending on how you enter, you will want to understand price action around this region for you to be able to scale into scale lower and stuff like that. So depending on how you trade, can be able to scale lower to this region and see how we can best be able to have trade entries around this region here. But we seem to be heading down to this low and then maybe eventually to this. So these are areas we will be looking for trading opportunities around to sell. Yeah. So looking at the possible fundamentals that are going to be happening this week. So I just want us to have an outlook of this. So today is being Wednesday. So on the dollar, we don't have much, but we do have on the Canadian pair. So we have fundamental on the Canadian pair. So coming into Thursday, also on Thursday, we will have the unemployment claims happening. So we will see how the unemployment claims will be able to determine this further strength of the dollar, because on the bigger perspective, we see the dollar is strong. Yeah, so the rest is all about patience. You understand the direction of the market from the bigger perspective. The rest of the work is all about patience and waiting for entries at the right place. And by entries at the right place here, I mean, if you understand the overall direction of the market, then you will want to sell as high as possible and then buy as low as possible. So how you identify the lows and the highs depends on your overall understanding of the market direction from the higher perspective. So the dollar is looking very strong. Therefore, we're going to be looking for some trading opportunities and further strength of the dollar. Now let's wait for what will come on the unemployment claims on Thursday and see how that is going to affect us in trading. So this is our perspective on the DXY and the dollar. And then maybe just to give us more clarity, I will add us another dollar pair. Let's look at gold on the bigger perspective and how we are planning to be able to trade gold. So you realize gold is one of those pairs whereby if there is a lot of an economic certainty in the market, people tend to go into buying gold and holding it for a long time. And economic certainty is majorly determined by the dollar. So gold is another safe haven, the same way the dollar pairs are other safe havens. But recently, due to many factors, many people actually are beginning to lose faith in the dollars. Yeah. So this is majorly because of many factors. Brexit. I mean like the BRICS. Yeah, the BRICS. But of course, the BRICS effects is kind of developing a little bit, but this is something that will begin to grow over a long period of time. It may not be immediate. Yeah. So if you look at it now, despite the fact that the BRICS countries are meeting and they're organizing their plans and all of that, the dollar is strengthening. Yeah. So the BRICS effects will be realized after some time, maybe not immediately. Yeah. So looking at the dollar also from the higher perspective, there is a lot of bearishness in the dollar, and there is a possibility of the dollar being, the gold, there's a lot of bearishness in gold, because the dollar is strong. Usually, if the dollar is strong, people do not buy gold. It's as simple as that. But then the dollar weakens, there is a possibility guys go on to buy gold. So if you look at gold, the highest gold has actually ever been is 2000, about 2000 and see, so 2083. So that is how high gold has been. So you can realize from these highs, this is the highest gold has ever been in years and years. If you just need to understand something briefly on the gold issue, is that gold, it being a safe haven, it could only go as high as 2000. Yeah, that is relatively a high price, but it's not as it's not as much as other safe havens or other investment assets have actually been going. If you look at other investment assets like Bitcoin has actually gone up to, from the time of inception, it went as high as 60,000, 68,000. So that's a lot. And if you look at, let me just explain something related to gold and Bitcoin. If you understand the problems that gold solve, you will be able to also understand the problems that cryptocurrency solve, and therefore understand the Bitcoin movement and its cycle. So let's look at the problems that gold solves. So gold acts as a safe haven when there is an economic certainties. If you look at the highest that gold ever went to was during the COVID-19 period. So gold was able to shoot as far as 2000. And then if you also looked at the time when there was the Russia-Ukraine crisis, gold also shot to some good high levels. But as we talk now, there seems to be calm in the economic environment. The dollar is strengthening, and that's why gold is a little bearish. So if you're looking to buy gold long term, this is not the right time. So gold, we all know that most of the dollars and many currencies in the world, they are traditionally supposed to be backed up by the dollar. But until when the gold standard was changed in the USA and all that stuff, you realize that most of these US dollar currencies are no longer actually backed up by gold, and so is our local currencies. We may have gold in reserves, but the equivalent amount of gold in reserve is not equivalent to the money that is in circulation, the paper money. So that tells you a lot. So if you look at now, understand how gold moves, depending on the safety and the economic health that is happening, you will also need to understand how the Bitcoin cycle moves. Now, Bitcoin was introduced to solve problems of traditional finance, the loopholes which were there in the traditional finance, the banking systems and all of that. Bitcoin came in to solve them. And what were some of them? One of them was the idea of double spend, okay? High transactional cost. And then also we had issues to do with the lack of transparency. So Bitcoin came in with the idea of trying to solve these issues of transactional costs, transparency, and also double spend. So how did Bitcoin solve that? And even issues to do with inflation. So Bitcoin has a tendency built in it that it cannot be, it can fight inflation on its own. But our traditional finance and money does not actually solve issues to do with inflation. That's why you see prices of things keep on going up eventually. But Bitcoin solves that through what is called Bitcoin halving. We'll look at also the Bitcoin chart later. Bitcoin halving solves the issue of inflation. That is, every 4 years, the amount of Bitcoins that is produced is halved. So that tells you a lot. So, and then if you look at other issues to do with double spend, transactional cost, Bitcoin has actually been able to solve it. And actually the whole idea of cryptocurrency has been built around trying to solve issues to do with centralization. So the crypto works with a very good principle, which is called the proof of work, whereby every transaction and all the amounts of Bitcoin that are in circulation, we can all be able to know where they came from. There has to be some proof of work whereby computers sit down, solve difficult puzzles, and then they are rewarded with blocks. So when you understand that, that is the idea of crypto is actually very powerful, because it brings in decentralization, solves in inflation through Bitcoin halving, reduces transactional costs, and then there's proof of work. We know where this money comes from. This is very different from the traditional finance. That means the ledger, the Bitcoin ledger, is open, the open source. So that tells you a lot about crypto. So you can look at the crypto, although there are a lot of scams and stuff like that on crypto, but the idea of crypto is actually very powerful. It's very powerful. The only thing now you're seeing, which is a challenge, is the crypto is because the Bitcoin is dollar denominated. That's why you see now the price of Bitcoin is about what? 20,000, 25,000, $26. That is its dollar value, but that is not it. The idea of crypto is actually more powerful. Anyway, so let's break down this one further, gold, as we continue to do that. So if you look at gold, so this is gold on the monthly time frame. There's bearishness, and the reason why it's bearish is because the dollar is strong. So no people are actually not buying gold right now. But also, if you look at that, gold has been at its highest price, which has been acting as a resistance. So you can see. So we have our lows here. So if the economic situation does not change and things still seems to be calm, there's a possibility of gold coming back to 1,800 and possibly also to 1,885. So this is where we shall be looking, because that is the previous monthly lows. So gold could actually come as low as there. So if you look at this on the weekly, this is an area, the weekly area. Market is failing to go further. That we're beginning to see a decline in price on that area. There's because of the price differences that we have here and all that stuff, depending on how you analyze it. But if you look at this, this is an area gold is actually failing to further break upwards. But previously, we also had this area, which was also a very important area. So if you look at gold now, there's a possibility of gold coming back to these lows here, depending on how it is moving now. So this is an area gold is failing to break. Now, depending on how you trade and all of that, so as long as this area is not being taken out, there is a possibility of gold pushing all the way up to this area here, but we will see more price action. If it comes up back here and it doesn't take away this, there's a possibility of gold continuing to come down all the way up to here. Yeah, so with that being said, we need to also understand the Bitcoin, BTC, because they're all they are dollar related. So it will help us understand the overall cycle, and therefore prepare us. So this is what I was explaining to you. So the dollar denomination of Bitcoin does not actually tell you the real value of Bitcoin. If you study the loopholes which are in traditional finance, you realize that the idea of Bitcoin is actually more powerful than its dollar value. So its dollar value is right now at 25,000. But the idea behind Bitcoin, which is transparency, fighting inflation, few transactional costs, and an open ledger whereby we can be able to know the amount of Bitcoin that is in circulation coupled with the timestamp that is available, the timestamp. So meaning every transaction that is happening as a timestamp, we can be able to see who owns this and how much is that. That tells you more about the nature of the Bitcoin. So Bitcoin may come lower, but still, somebody well put it that you are rewarded in life by the problems you are able to solve. So if you look at these major problems that Bitcoin solved, that gold solved some problems, but it was rewarded by gold heading up to 2000. But once Bitcoin came in and it solved most of the issues to do with traditional business, you realize that Bitcoin shot from 0 all the way up to 68,000. So that means the idea of Bitcoin was very powerful. And then also just to tell you another thing about Bitcoin in terms of the dollar related value is that you don't need to, the Bitcoin cycle, you need to understand it in this way. The Bitcoin, it has like, let me just put it this side. There are 3 cycles that you need to understand about the Bitcoin. One of them being the buying stage. So there's usually guys who have Bitcoins who do cryptocurrencies and other stuff like that. We're not talking about cryptocurrency as a general. So there are guys who come up with coins with whatever coin they come up with, and they come up with their utility, the utility case and all of that stuff. But if you study it carefully, there are guys who get to have these coins at their earliest stage, ICOs, initial coin offering and all of that, and the founders. So by the time a coin comes to an exchange, it is actually late. It may not be too late, but it is late. Yeah. And the first stage is the guys come up with their coin, their utility case, they give it to their close friends who know about the coin. And then after there's some value in it, some exchanges like Binance, Bitstamp, Coin and others come in, and then you can access it via the exchange, which is a little bit late. It may not be too late. I want you to mark my words, but it's late because now somebody bought it at somebody had it at 0. Now you are buying it when it is 50 cents, when it is 20 cents, when it is whatever. So it's like it's late. And then by the time you hear it on social media, media companies and all of that, everyone is talking about it. Just know the coin guys are about to cash out. So instead of trying to sometimes buy these other coins on when they're already in the exchange, which is a little bit late, it is actually better to look for ways in which you can short them. And that can actually work for even the fake, the other cryptocurrencies which do not live up to their potential, where guys do rug pulls. So the 3 stages is the early buyers, the exchange, when it comes to the exchange, and then when the media starts to talk about it, or when your taxi driver or anybody starts to talk about Bitcoin, just know it is too late. Let me give you this live example. If you study during the COVID times, and especially when the stimulus check was being given to the guys in the USA, when everyone was getting some money from the government, you realize by that time, there was a lot of need for people to be able, they want people to buy Bitcoin and all of that stuff. There was a lot of media talk about the possibility of Bitcoin going up to 100,000 and all of that stuff. And many guys actually got their money and they put it into the cryptocurrency, to the point that the value of cryptocurrency moved from 1 trillion to 2 trillion. But as we talk now, the value is around 1 trillion. What do you think happened to the other trillion? So the guys bought, the guys who had their coins, they went to the media took the thing. You see celebrities who don't know about Bitcoin talking about it, telling you that the thing is going to go to 100,000. 60,000 was high enough. Anyway, let's just break the chart down. So if you look at this, our highest that Bitcoin has ever gone into has been 68,000, over 68,000, and then we see our low here. But if you look at this carefully, this is an area where Bitcoin could actually come and retest. And then we also had these lows. And then if you look at it from the bigger perspective, it is telling you this is bearish, this candle is just bearish. So there's a possibility of this one also closing bearish. But let's go to the monthly chart and we look at that on the monthly chart. So on the monthly chart, if you look at this, this is the high that Bitcoin has failed to break above around 30. It has been playing around 30, but then look at this month, it closed very bearish. We had these previous monthly lows. Let's see what price will do around here. And then we have our monthly bearish high. So we are trading around here. So let's see whether if Bitcoin manages to break this key level, then we will see a further drop into these areas. But if that does not happen, then we can actually have a market coming back to these highs. Yeah, so let's see what happens around here. And then also, if you look at on the weekly perspective, these are the levels we have. So there is a possibility that Bitcoin could actually bounce off to this weekly high, and then maybe from there can begin to come further down. Because if you look at this, this is also an important area of price difference. Depending on how you trade, now you can begin to see and have your long-term perspective on the Bitcoin. So coming to the daily time frame, this is what we have. So now if we combine everything, we talked about the DXY being strong, so the dollar is strong. And then we went to look at some few currencies, which has to do with the euro dollar and that stuff. Then we looked at the Bitcoin chart and the circle. So most importantly, when you understand the strength of the dollar, that means also people are not going to be buying a lot of Bitcoin. So when the dollar is strong, there is no buying of gold. Gold will actually be reducing in value. Bitcoin usually also have a tendency of reducing in value. And then what happens to the index? So you need to also understand the index, how they are playing out when the dollar is strong. So when the dollar is strong, let me just look at the US 30, just to give you that perspective. The same thing which I said about the gold reducing in value, Bitcoin also coming down because the dollar is strong. The same thing also happens to the index, these other companies. But when the dollar is weak, that is a whole different story. So when the dollar is weak, this index and they also go up. US 30 goes up. Bitcoin usually has a tendency of going up. Gold goes up. So you just need to understand this from the bigger perspective, and then you can be able to trade and just have your technicals for your entries. So with that being said, look at this is the highest US 30 has ever been. And then we had during COVID, it came as low as this time. This is on the yearly perspective. When we come to the monthly perspective, we can also look at this. So if you look at the previous monthly high, so the market closed actually bearish. So we thought price could actually push up all the way up to this previous highs. But yeah, that will happen, but not now, because the dollar all of a sudden has strengthened. So if the dollar strengthens, the index also begins to lose value. And then we had our the low of the month. then this also these areas, which will act as our support, resistance, whatever you want to have them. So we are trading around this region, and there is a possibility of this week coming to be filled. As long as the dollar continues to be strong, we'll see market actually pulling down all the way up to here. So we had our areas of price difference, whatever you want to call it, depending on how you trade. So we are trading around this region here, from here all the way up to here. So you can begin to see where you are entering and where you're having your entries. So this is all based on the same thing. The strength of the dollar, which is reflected in the DXY being also strong, is the same thing which we are having on the Bitcoin chart. BTC, USD. So that is the same thing we have in the Bitcoin, whereby the Bitcoin is also reducing. That is what we have. So from the fundamental perspective, you just need to understand this, and then you can begin to have your entries. So these are swing perspectives. So if you do day trading, you can also do that, because every strategy is supposed to be built. It has to have a principle. So if your strategy can work on a longer time frame, you can also have it on a shorter time frame. But I would prefer to use the long perspective. So this is what we have on the dollar, the DXY, and Bitcoin and gold. So wish you all the best. Good luck trading. Let's look at the fundamental and see what and how it goes. Thank you.